Glasgow advanced to a home quarter final after a hard fought win against the Bulls. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. This was a pretty close game, played in rainy, windy conditions at Scotstoun, and it was Glasgow who came out on top in the end, but it was fairly even most of the way through. So we start off with Bulls. They managed to work the ball about 5 minutes out in the opening minute or so, and looking like really putting pressure on Glasgow, but they put in a big counter ruck, turned the ball over, and they had to clear. Great defense from Glasgow there, not giving the Bulls an early sniff at a score. Glasgow then were looking to work it upfield, but they're losing the collisions early on. We have a great hit from Steenkamp. They then go to the air. Horn kicks the ball out into full, but then Grobbelaar is not straight in the line out throw, so we're having errors on both sides early on in this one. Bulls then with multiple 22 entries, the forwards driving them on. Glasgow off feet. Bulls decide they're going to take a kick for the post, and Pollard makes it 3-0. Glasgow then get a penalty as the Bulls are offside. Lancaster kicks them to the corner. Hiddleston finds Williamson. They move the ball in field to Pilotu then with an inside ball, but Matt Ferguson knocks on. Something that is indicative of Glasgow in recent years, but also contrast between the teams here, is that Glasgow get a penalty, they're always kicking to the corner or tapping, never going for the posts. And by contrast, the Bulls are trying to take their points and just trying to keep that scoreboard ticking over. Bulls then offside again, Warriors up the line to 10 minutes out, but they knock on the line out and Bulls are able to clear. MacLeod then breaks up the middle, brings Glasgow back into 22. It's scrappy at the breakdown, and they end up actually going backwards, but Ferguson gathers the loose ball, finds a gap. He gets in behind, off the horn. He's hauled down just short of the line. Recycled. Williamson gets over to score, converted for 7-3. Bulls then win a scrum penalty as Sander Ferguson gets pinged. They kick to about 10 minutes out. They then, it's one of these ones where they go to the tail of the line out, but then it's dropped down for a pod at the front to set up the maul. They get great momentum off that. Penalty advantage on the go. They then move the ball back out wide, and Creel with an absolutely superb offload load, and Grobbelaar goes over in the corner. Conversion missed. It's 8-7. Bulls just in front. Schickling then not releasing, and it's a penalty to the Bulls. Pollard puts them on the edge of the 22. They move off the line out. Moody and Grobbelaar, give them great front foot. Glasgow offside. Pollard then extends the lead 11-7. Glasgow get a warning for the number of penalties they're conceding. Glasgow then win a penalty at the restart. They go to the corner, set up the maul. It's going forward. The backs pile in. Bulls pull it down. Then they go moving out. Dempsey crashes over. Conversion is missed. 12-11. Glasgow then offside from a kick, and the Bulls call for the tee. Pollard lands the penalty. 14-12. Bulls in front once more, and the edge just swinging back and forth between the teams. There's then a big hit from Moody on MacDowell to end the half. It's checked in case he took him over the horizontal, but it's all good. Halftime 14-12. So, Bulls would have been happy with the position. One thing though that wasn't good for them and didn't really improve for most of the game was their restart. Almost every single restart there was a mistake. We're into the second half then. Bulls boring in at a scrum. Glasgow kicked the penalty to 10 metres out, but then they knock on as they set up the line-out maul. Bulls then on the edge of the 22, making some ground, but Shicklin over the ball wins a penalty for Glasgow. We then have a scrum penalty to the Bulls. They go up the line, work it into the 22. Papier chips over the top. There's a knock on. Then McDowell just absolutely smashes it downfield. Pollard prevents a 50-22, but the wind then holds up his clearance kick. Bulls are offside. Glasgow now kicking to the corner. They then drive the maul. It stalls. The backs pile in. They surge forward again. Bulls are offside. Glasgow then just opt to tap the penalty when they can't take any advantage. McDowell with a good carry recycled, and over goes Schickerling. Conversion is missed, 17 points to 14. Bulls now, they're picking and going. They're 5 metres out, but Rory Darge does really well. He gets in there, turns the ball over for Glasgow before then Bulls compound the error by conceding a penalty, and great defence from Glasgow there. Bulls then not releasing penalty to Glasgow. We've got a round of handbags. Van Staden is singled out for escalating it. The penalty is marched 10 metres forward. Lancaster kicks for the corner. Glasgow then go to the maul before spreading it. They win another penalty advantages. They go through multiple phases before they move it wide left. McDowell gets it down in the corner. Conversion missed, 22 points to 14. Little bit of breathing room for Glasgow. Berger then with a kick over the top. Glasgow just let it bounce on the edge of their own 22. Moody gets the loose ball first. He carries them forward. The forwards then come in, getting closer and closer. They move it right up to the line. Van Staden then forces his way over to score. Converted for 22 points to 21. Mackay then slices away through the Bulls line. Gets stopped just short of the line. Bulls conceding penalty advantages. Lowe then goes to the bin. We've got 37 seconds left on the clock. Warriors point to the post to check the referee that it's okay to let the clock go into red before they kick it. Like they've got 60 seconds to take the penalty, so obviously it's fine. Hastings allows that to happen. He gives a thumbs up to the Bulls because of course he does. Like these players that the last few years, a lot of these players, you got who was it? Hendrickson, Hastings. The last couple of weeks, Pollard does it all the time as well. Just kind of jibes at the opposition. But yeah, he gives some thumbs up, and then clock goes into red, slots the penalty, and it's 25-21. He wasn't going to miss. It was right in front. That's a full-time score. So Glasgow, very first time they're going to be hosting a quarter-final at I don't know whether it's going to be Scotland or they're going to move it somewhere else. We'll have to see. But yeah, they're at home for that quarter final. So we're going to have a look at stats, and then we'll come back and talk about each of the teams. So let me pull the stats up here on the official site. So we start with scoring. So 4 tries to 2. As I said, most of the Bulls' points, well, a lot of the Bulls' points certainly, coming from the boot, whereas Glasgow really going for those tries. Then on attack, we have 330 metres made to 191, and that's from 123 carries and 93 for the Bulls. So you can see from that, as I talked about in the game, Glasgow not winning the collisions early on. As the game wore on, then they did start to win those collisions, and Dempsey, I think, was certainly a big factor in that for them. But then they had, the likes of Stafford Mordell had a brilliant game as well. They had Tuipulotu doing some hard carries. And then this is a telling stat in terms of the way the two teams play the game. Clean breaks, 7 for Glasgow, none for the Bulls, and that was from 21 defenders beaten. So 1 in 3 converted by Glasgow and 8 defenders beaten by the Bulls. So there's no conversion right there because they didn't convert any. Offloads then 4 each. Passes 127 to 72, 55% possession to 45, and 47% territory to 53. So Glasgow having most of the ball, but for most of the time, that was in their own half. On to defence then, 116 tackles made to 153, and 88% tackle success from Glasgow is absolutely outstanding. 82% from Bulls is pretty admirable as well. Turnovers 1 then, 5 for Glasgow, 1 for the Bulls. And yeah, the likes of Rory Darge turning those balls over for Glasgow at crucial moments in the game as well. On to set piece then. Lineouts 1, 9 each, but Glasgow only at 75%, so that's probably 9 from 12, and the Bulls at 90%, so 9 from 10 for them. So Glasgow, we know that their lineout maul is an absolute weapon, and for me, it is, in terms of club rugby, the best in Europe, certainly, and probably the best in the world. But the lineout itself can be a bit vulnerable, and we saw that a bit today as well. Scrums then, 5 scrums won from Glasgow, and they're at 83%, so I think it's 5 from 6. And then the Bulls, 9 wins for them for 90%, so 9 from 10. On to kicking, just 13 kicks in play for Glasgow and 25 for the Bulls. So Glasgow looking to keep the ball in hand as much as they could. We could see that in terms of, them getting the majority of their meters from carrying the ball. They got 373 meters as well from kicking the ball, but the Bulls 721. So you can see there that the Bulls, doing most of the kicking, they are, but at the same time, the kick meters per kick are fairly similar between the teams. Both just under 30 meters per kick. Just 3 kicks retained by the Bulls. We saw a lot of kicks going up in the air, but conditions meant people weren't catching it cleanly for the most part. So to be able to retain 3 kicks, I think was pretty decent for the Bulls. None retained by Glasgow. On to breakdown then, 91 rucks won to 69. And 1 ruck loss from the Bulls, 98% to 97 ruck success. Then turnovers 1 in rucks and mauls, 5 for Glasgow and just 1 for the Bulls, as we said. And then Glasgow 4 mauls, 3 of those successful for 75%, and the Bulls 5 mauls total for 4 successful and 80%. But Glasgow, really, their maul was a great platform for getting those tries that helped them to win the game. On to penalties then, 7 conceded by Glasgow, 14 by the Bulls, far too many. Glasgow making sure that they kept it in single figures. We always talk about that being kind of the Goldilocks zone for that. Yellow cards then, just 1 for the Bulls. And yeah, even though the Bulls were close a lot of the time, the fact that Glasgow in that second half, they were the team in the lead. They were forcing the Bulls to come back at them as well and put them in, I think, a better position overall. But let's talk about the teams. We start with the Bulls. So, top first half, they did fairly well. They played conditions well, and they got themselves that lead going in at the break. But then second half, Glasgow came back at them, come over the top. They got themselves a decent lead, and the Bulls found it hard to, get back at them. They obviously got themselves back within a point at one stage, 22-21, but they didn't have the momentum from there to go on and get themselves another score. It was, up to that point, it was eerily similar to Toulon versus Stormers, where Stormers did something similar, got themselves back within, a couple of points, a point, but they did have the chance to get that final score and they weren't able to do it. Whereas in this one, it was Glasgow who were on the front foot at the end, and they added that extra 3 points at the death as well. So, the Bulls, I thought, in terms of going away from home in the knockout stages, well, we've seen them previously, and we've seen other South African teams previously as well, just sending up, basically a second team that weren't able to do anything. In this one, though, they took it seriously. They sent some, really good players. They had, a lot of Springboks in there. We had Hanacom coming back as well. That he's been like a big miss for the Bulls. He's been injured for so long, and he was such a revelation as well when he burst into the team. So he's going to get better with time, but maybe this game came a little bit too early for him to have a massive impact on it. But they gave it a real go, and they're the last team to beat Glasgow at Scotstoun, and they almost repeated the trick as well today. So in terms of the effort, you got to give them a lot of credit there for that. And it was a game that was so close as well that you can't really criticize them too much in terms of their performance, because it's not like the Stormers, where the Stormers had, for me, a gilt-edged chance to win the game and they didn't take it. Whatever you're talking about, referees' decisions or whatever at the end of that game, for me, it was still in the Stormers' hands to win that game if they were, a bit smarter about it. But the Bulls, I thought excellent performance from them today, and hopefully these kind of games, this game and the Stormers game earlier on, really does start to build that that kind of love for the Champions Cup that a lot of us in Europe already have. Down in South Africa, gets the fans talking about these games, that in 10 years time or whatever, when maybe the Bulls are getting to semi-finals or finals of this competition, that they're looking back, maybe they're going into semi-final against Glasgow and looking back at this game as being a classic between the two, that kind of thing. That's really where I'm hoping it's going to go for the likes of the Bulls from the Champions Cup point of view. But overall, I don't think you'd be too critical of them today. Then Glasgow, they end up, I think, first half defense kind of kept them in the game, because the Bulls had a lot of pressure early on. They didn't concede too many points, just conceded 3, got themselves ahead, ended up being behind at the break, but they're within touching distance. And then second half, then it didn't take too long to take the lead of the game, and then they didn't relinquish it for the rest of the game after that as well. So that was really good from them. I thought that as the game went on, they had more impact in terms of, we talked about not winning the collisions early on, they started winning the collisions later on in the game, and the likes of as I said, Tupilatu and Dempsey were a major factor in that. But then you had people like Rory Dard, Schickerling, disrupting the Bulls as well at the breakdown. And I thought as well, Hiddleston played well, and Seb Steve, when he come on as well, the two hookers had decent games there too. And overall, I thought it was a decent performance from Glasgow. They used their maul when they could, but also they had that ability to put the ball into the backs as well. And they took chances, even though they had penalty advantage, but they decided we're going to go for the scores. We want the tries. We're not going to take the threes. And the only time they took the penalty was at the end, because they knew the game was going to be over. They were basically just running down the clock. But any other time, they backed themselves. They were brave. They went to the corner, and it's great to see from them as well. It's great to see the growth from this team since they won the URC. It feels like they really have progressed to a new level. They did really well, in the pool stages this year. They now got themselves into a quarter final. They're going to be hosting Toulon in the next round, and it's a case of get through that. If they can get through that, I should say, then semi-final and beyond awaits them.